Something, we're going to have some release notes to go with it. They're going to tell you what we changed, what we fixed. They might tell you what we broke. Read through it. Determine if whatever we fixed is something that you were having a problem with. If we fixed something that you're not using, then delete the email and move on with your life. If we gave you a new feature that you've really been wanting for, you were voting for it every day and writing comments in the forum that I really want this new feature, we probably had you beta test it then. But go ahead and install that update. Okay? Your firmware should match across the link though. Okay? This radio here should have the same firmware as that radio there. Okay? That doesn't mean that every radio you have has to have the same firmware. Certainly can be a good idea. Okay? When you do an RMA or a return for repair, we will have there's a checkbox on the authorization form that says upgrade my firmware or don't upgrade my firmware. Okay? So if you don't want the firmware upgraded, then make sure you check the no, otherwise we're done upgrading. Alright, how to do the upgrade? Download the firmware and the detailed instructions.
Can you go backwards?
That's a very good question. So, if you upgrade the image and something's not what you want, you can toggle the firmware back without any huge pain in the rear end, just boot image toggle reboot. If you ever want to downgrade, you have to remove your configuration to downgrade. Okay? Software can handle upgrading configurations, but it can't handle going backwards. It can't handle new stuff.
So what was the first part of that you said, if you didn't like the firmware?
Boot image toggle. So do the upgrade, download the firmware and the detailed instructions from our FTP or support portal. We certainly suggest that you have copies of everything, just in case. I really like it that you have console cable, just in case. Perform this during the maintenance window or fail over your traffic to another link. The old school way to do it, you're going to transfer the files to TFTP, so in the radio you turn TFTP on, and then from your non-Windows 7, non-Windows 8 device, you'll go ahead and do TFTP-I, put IP address, file name, push the file out. If you have Windows 7, I'm sorry. Then on the radio, you'll do boot image, upgrade, IDU or OMU, and boom, firmware comes in. Okay? TFTP is slow, not all that reliable, but it works. Here's the way I would do it. If your radio can get to the internet, and I'm not saying that you have a public IP address, I'm not saying that it's not firewalled, I'm just saying that it can get to the internet, then you can just pull the files directly from our FTP server inside the radio. Okay? If it can't, you're going to have to transfer those files from our website into your own FTP server and then get to them that way. Just as well. Okay, detailed instructions are there. We're going to follow them in a second. Again, same thing. The FTP server, you log in, you pull the file, and then you do the same shindig, boot image, upgrade IDU.
Question.
And when you're done, you reboot. Yeah.
Can we go back to the other slide? Last item, toggle command. I didn't follow you. What if it's booted once to the newer code? And then modify the data?
No, you can toggle.
Okay, but when do you have to,
if you formally want to downgrade. So toggling is not downgrading, it's toggling.
What's the difference?
The radio keeps 2 copies of the image, keeps a current and a previous firmware.
2, that's maximum.
If you want to go back to the previous, you toggle. Boot image toggle. You're back at the previous.
Okay.
Does that
After
stay
you
there? Like if you reboot it, boots up in previous?
It'll boot up in the previous. Well, you see boot image toggle, we'll just swap the previous and the current. Then you reboot, and it'll go
Current
basically
will
with the previous.
Current will be your old one.
And then you could toggle back to the new, and you can sit there and toggle all day long. But if you wanted to formally downgrade, so say you're on version 3.10 now, you upgrade to 3.11, and you say, forget this, I want to go back to 2.0 or whatever. you'd have to remove the config and then upgrade to 2.0.
But if you had the last backup of 2 whatever, you
If
could,
your previous image was 2.0, you just boot image toggle.
Okay. So normally that would work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's only if you,
What I
it's
mean
only
is
if you
like-
want to go
yeah.
down.
More than one run back.
if I have a backup of how my database, my configuration was
Yeah.
before upgrading to
That's not-
3.1,
they got a new feature
I could
that's not 11.
default it,
You put
put
it in, you
the
put
2 code on,
Yeah.
upload my backup.
You'd have to
My
remove
config.
the config, upload the firmware, reboot, import the config from the old version.
So it's an extra step.
Yeah.
But you don't have, as long as you're keeping it, you don't have to put everything back in, as long as you're saving your configs.
Yeah. I mean, once I've heard of somebody needing to downgrade. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Downgrading removes everything?
If you downgrade, you manually have to remove the config, because we don't officially, I mean, we don't support it, it's not a normal way to go.
Okay, so for us to be able to downgrade, we have to remove the config.
You'd have to do config
It
remove.
won't wipe the unit.
No, you depending on the, I mean, it depends on the version. If you're just going back like a minor release, you probably would be okay, but I'm not guaranteeing anything. But if you're going back a major release, it'll either crash when it boots or it'll have weird erratic behavior. It's hard to say. So you would do config remove, then boot image upgrade IDU, then reboot. It'll reboot with no configuration. ODU power on, frequency, speed. Now you have link again.
And if it accidentally I don't remove the config and let's say the unit crashes, can I access it through the serial port and try to fix it? Reflashing, let's say the previous software.
It's going to depend on exactly the state. I don't want to guarantee anything to you. You could always, through the serial port, you could reload the firmware. The problem is there's not necessarily a way for you to remove the configuration. So you might end up in a situation where you'd have to load the new firmware so that you could remove the config. But in the cases I've seen, it'll boot. It just won't let you do anything. It'll crash shortly thereafter booting or something.
Sort of a house trick.
So you'd have to, it's like the first thing you could do is remove the config and you'd be okay. But if you tried to do anything else, then you'd have a problem. Yep, good question.
Is there a default code in line command if you're reading with the console cable, serial cable?
A default what?
Default command to completely default the radio back to factory setting.
As long as the firmware is working, config remove.
Config remove is factory default.
Config remove is going to reset the RF stuff. Your IP address and password are saved outside of that file.
Okay.
So it would be like the long button push. Okay, it's the same. Yeah, so for that matter, you can config remove a radio out in the field as long as you have access to it without a link, because you'll have the IP address will remain the same. Okay?
Okay.
Let's do it. If you go to our support site, okay, and then you click on, say, Apex Plus, okay, you'll have an option then over here for firmware. Okay, so here's the 3.10 release. We go ahead and click on it. We tell you right here what's changed, what's new, what's fixed, any kind of known limitations that exist. Okay, you go ahead and you open the release notes here. Scroll down, you got all sorts of good stuff. Same thing, new features, bug fixes, notes, known limitations. Software image upgrade procedure. Tells you all about it. Tells you what to do. So forth and so on. Okay. Then at the bottom is the change history. So if you want to know what happened, maybe you're on 1.0 right now and you want to know what's changed beyond just that one release. You can look at the end of this to see what's changed. Okay? Now if I go back up here, I don't see anything that says anything particular about upgrading from a certain version. In my case, I'm going to assume that means I can go ahead and do it. There's nothing special I need to know. Okay? Now I'll show you something that's a little different. If I went to Giga Plus, went to
Sorted very well.
back to 1.1. And I open those release notes. Okay, software image upgrade from 3.0.x. Well, if you're upgrading from an older version, okay, well, I'm older. Remember, I'm 1.0 something.
You take it all the way to the previous version from 3, so
Yeah.
you can get to 3, then to upgrade.
This is what
Huh?
I gotta do is.
You have to go to the latest version before 3, so you can update to 3.
It depends. That's why you got to follow the instructions. So, if you're upgrading from an older version, see the corresponding instructions on the following pages. Okay, so I'm not on 3. I'm going to go following. Okay, here's 1.3.0 or 1.3.3. If that's what I'm on, then I follow these instructions. If I'm upgrading from 1.3.2, then I need to do the following. If I'm on an older version, I have to go to 1.3 before I can do this. Okay? So we'll tell you if you need to do something. Just be sure that you look and you read it. Okay? So in case of 1.3.2, I could go down here, boom, here's 1.3.2. And it tells me again, if you're upgrading older, you need to go to 1.3 first. Okay? So then if you went back out here, Giga Plus firmware, you would find, I think it's actually 1.3.2 out here that's posted. Alright, Verizon's unlicensed, backhaul's dying. Anyways, out here you'd have a link to do, you know, to download 1.3 and then you upgrade from there. So, okay.
Which could be an adventure if you have to.
I haven't done it. I just haven't pulled that trigger. I'm scared.
Delegate it to somebody then,
Yeah.
and make sure Scott's not on vacation.
Alright, so let's say I want to do this on a radio. Okay? So here I am, I'm on a radio. I want to upgrade firmware. So over here I have the release notes. I have this somewhat memorized, so I don't really need to look at it. But, okay, first thing it tells me to do is make sure I can ping this server. Okay, so let's go ahead and try it. Okay, so I need to go to debug prompt. Debug ping. Okay, I can ping the server. Once I pasted the IP address twice, so it doesn't like that. Okay, so I can ping it. Let me go back to the CLI. Okay, the instructions tell you to type this in. That's the FTP, then the server name, then the username. Get, I don't remember the file name. Okay, so here's what I just did, right? And this is what I'm going to do. I already figured get. Can't get.
Doesn't work twice as fast that way.
No. Okay, it pulls the file. You log out. Boot image upgrade. OMU. Away it goes. I'm still passing traffic while I'm doing this upgrade. Nothing's actually happening here. I'm downloading the image. I've downloaded the image and now I'm burning the image into the flash. Okay. Nothing actually takes effect until I reboot the radio. Okay.
So in this case, I don't know if this build came with ODU and OMU. Because the next step would be ODU or.
In my time at Trengo, we've never released an ODU firmware update, but
Oh, really? Okay.
if we ever did, then yes, you'd do a boot image upgrade ODU. In 3 years I've been there, we've never done it. A little bit easier than the old Giga and Apex, where you had all the different images and you had to do them one at a time, and yeah. Does take some time. I'm
Well,
not going to lie to you.
I bricked 1 giga. That was nice.
So you watch the little dots go by, go by, go by. So that's the FTP process. The TFTP process is substantially the same except that instead of doing it all inside the radio, you're going to push the file to the radio. Okay. All the new products, all the new firmware, they all support the FTP upgrade. That's the way I would go. If for whatever reason you don't have access out to the internet, you'll have to put that on a local FTP server or then use the TFTP. TFTP will take you like 4, 5, 6 times, maybe more, longer to transfer the file into the radio. And there's all sorts of other little things that go with it. If you didn't do it with Windows 7, doesn't have the TFTP client, you can install the TFTP client in there, or I would download a program called TFTP D32. It's a little graphical interface, and it works a lot better. If you have an issue transferring the file with TFTP, more than likely the Windows firewall is causing the problem. Okay. You use a different computer, it'll work fine. You use a different program, it'll work fine.
SolarWinds has a free one too that works pretty well.
Yes, yeah, they've got that. If you want to turn off your Windows firewall, you need to go into the services. Yeah, if your TFTP is not working, and I've learned from the past of not actually doing this because it apparently doesn't work when you're doing it via remote desktop. Okay, you go into your Windows firewall and you stop the service. Otherwise, I don't care what Windows firewall says that it's not stopping, not blocking. If your TFTP is not working, Windows firewall is blocking it. Stop the service and then it seems to be okay. Don't do that if you're a remote desktop into a computer. Or you'll never get back in. Any other questions while we're watching the dots grow? Overall, learn something?
Lots.
Yeah. Did anybody not learn anything? You want your money back? Okay, good. Anybody flying out today? You're driving home today. I'm driving home today.
Beating the middle of
So obviously it's a little fast, but there you go. It's done. So it didn't take that long. So it tells you success. I'm anal. I go look at my syslog. Syslog tells me image upgraded, image upgraded, image upgrade, image upgrade done. Okay. Boot. And if you were logged into apa.trinkossys.com, you just lost your access. And then the radio's going to take, the normal reboot takes about 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. Reboot when it's doing the firmware upgrade could take it 5 minutes. If you do not get the radio back within 5 minutes, wait another 5 minutes before you do anything. The worst thing that you can do is unplug the power while it's doing it. Okay? So make sure you give it a good 10 minutes before you do anything to it if it's all, if you can't get back to it. In that case, wait 10 minutes. I'd go ahead and pull the power. Actually, this is a good opportunity. Something else for you guys to consider when you're designing your sites is to have some form of remote power. Okay? Your APC battery backups and whatever, lots of times have remote power. You can get something like this, a little web power switch that you can remote into and turn every port on and off. All that jazz. Might be worth considering something along those lines whenever you need to power cycle something.
I don't know